Let's create another frequency distribution. Here we have a table representing the ages of all U.S. presidents at the time they were first inaugurated. And you don't have this written in your table, but I just did, just to show you what number represents what president. The very first number in the table, 57, that's George Washington. It goes down, John Adams is 61, Thomas Jefferson was the third president, he was 57. And then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then our sixth president here, John Quincy Adams, and so forth, and it goes all the way down to Teddy Roosevelt being 42. He's our youngest president ever to be inaugurated. John F. Kennedy is 43. And then we have the last few, President Obama 47, Trump 70, and President Biden 78. So the first question that I have, were the data obtained from a population or a sample? Explain your answer. Think about it for a second. Write down what you think it is. Is it a population or is it a sample? This is a population. We're talking about all of the U.S. presidents. So this is the population of all U.S. presidents. The age of the oldest president we can see in the table is actually President Biden. The youngest president originally stated Theodore Roosevelt, 42. We're going to take this data and create a frequency distribution and a relative frequency distribution by hand. So there's not any information here to tell me how many classes. I'm going to pick 5. Let's suppose we do 5 classes. And I'll shrink my notes here. Let's say we do 5 classes. Let's see if we can find our class width. So 78 minus 42 divided by 5. 78 minus 42 is 36. Divided by 5 gives me 7.2. So I would take 7.2 and round up to 8 for my width. We always round up, and the reason we round up is to make sure that we capture all of our data values. So we've got 5 classes. Our width is going to be 8. We'll start out with age and frequency. And starting out, we can just start with our minimum, 42. Since our width is 8, we're going to add to 42 and get 50 for the next class. 58 for the third class. 58 plus 8 will be 66. 66 plus 8 will be 74. Then, to get the upper class limits, we're going to go 1 less, 49, 57, 65, 73. And then to get that last one, a small calculation, 73 plus 8 gives me 81. So we calculate all of our lower class limits first by using our first class value. Here we're picking the minimum because our width is very small in comparison to our calculation. So our calculation was 7.2. When we rounded up to 8, we're keeping it pretty tight. If we were to expand to, let's say, 10 for our class width, we could start at 40 and still have enough to get us up to make sure that everybody is counted in the table. And again, don't be afraid to back up and readjust if things don't work out. Now we just need to count the data. So you have the data in front of you up here above. I'm looking at the same data, but I'm not going to have it up here on the screen. And I'm going to go through and tally. And I want you to do the same thing. Start tallying. So George Washington, 57. He's going to be in the second group. So 57 for George Washington is going to be in group 2. 61 will be in group 3. 57 in group 2. And so forth. You do it too. Pause the video because I'm going to pause my recording, do it myself, and then resume. So make sure you pause, work on it on your own, and then resume, and we can talk about the tallies and the frequencies. Working through the data, there's a couple of things I want to point out. Here, even though President Biden is the 46th president, Grover Cleveland was our 22nd president and our 24th president. this is only recording the age at which they were first inaugurated. We didn't repeat Grover Cleveland's second term here. We could have, because he did get elected in a different cycle, he wasn't re-elected for a second term right away, but we have the data for first inauguration. So we did a quick double check to make sure that the tally added up to 45, because we're not double counting Grover Cleveland. And if you use the same classes that I do, we'll have 9 in the first class, 23 in the second, 9 in the third, 3 in the fourth, and 1 in the last class, which is pretty interesting that it landed that way. And using this information, we can answer some questions. So part E, are there any peaks in the distribution? Are there any classes with large frequencies? Yes. This second class, 50 to 57, there were 23 in that class, which is pretty significant. Are there any possible outliers? There could be. Outliers usually mean data far away from everyone else. And with President Biden being 78 and President Trump's inauguration was 70, 8 is our class width. And so that's pretty far away from everybody else when all the other ones are grouping together. So there could be a possible outlier. And remember, possible, we have to do some other calculations to determine true outliers, and we won't learn those calculations until the next chapter, chapter 3. So there are some possible outliers, and outliers just mean far away. So we're thinking about, are there any numbers that are far away from all the others? We can't say 42 because we had some 43s and 45s, which are right around 42, but 70 and then 78, that's a pretty big jump. So 78 might be possible. It's a suspected outlier. It doesn't mean that it is. In part G, summarize the nature of the data. What do you see about the table? Well, it starts off, and we can actually kind of see some of that shape over here with the tally. If I draw a line, we can see in a way that the second class is very much larger than all the other classes. Also, we could talk about, what do we notice about the data? We notice there are a few young presidents, only 9 compared to 45 of them. Most are inaugurated in their 50s. Few young presidents. Most are inaugurated in their 50s. And so here we have our frequency distribution. We'll need to put a title on it, ages of presidents, if we were doing this formally. We'd probably say inaugurations, ages. So ages of U.S. presidents at inauguration. Put a title on it. And then next up, we'll look at our relative frequency distribution.